What's up, folks? All right. Hmm. Fun. Forget to share my stream. Hey, Shays. All right. I guess it probably does look like I'm smoking a pipe when I do that. That's funny. can't decide if I want to do her little skull face or if I want to do the head that Sephiroth carries around. I might do the... I feel like the head's more iconic. I might do that. Chase, it's not all about detail. It's about design. You could be focusing more on speed, on design, on color. There's a million things. Like, detail's not everything. If anything, the reason I put out so few pieces is because I spend too much time detailing. Like, so don't feel bad. You're probably just focusing on other things, which is okay. Like, when I'm done with those Elden Ring pieces, I never want to do something that detailed again, because I should be able to put out, 4 or 5 pieces in the time it takes me to do one of those. Part of it's not using better software. Clip would be better. Part of it's spending too much time. Part of it's not working in the most efficient ways. But, yeah, Yeah, people like my detailed stuff, and I enjoy it too, but, I think I'm sacrificing a potential larger portfolio and other opportunities for a niche, which isn't always a bad thing, but I'm not personally super satisfied with my output. It's an understatement. I'm not satisfied with my output at all. So, finding ways to imply detail or get there faster. I gotta go back to like the studies I'll probably start doing study streams again. I've been doing studies off stream. I'm doing a lot of impressionism stuff where it's just like give yourself an hour and paint the thing, and it's not going to be detailed. It's just going to be like an impression of, the quickest possible route to convey what you're looking at with big massive brushstrokes and stuff. Like, been trying to do a lot of that, but now I got to start applying them in pieces. Yeah, those master painters that just like, and it's done, just like immediately. I'm like, fuck me, dude. Yo. Working on growths and strange amorphous guts, fleshy pustules. The stuff you see in Resident Evil monsters, which is essentially what Jenova is. is just a Final Fantasy Resident Evil monster. An undead, shape-shifting, bioorganic mass, you know? So, very basic concept, nothing too crazy. I've got the Genova doll, which is the metal thing with the face. I've got the tank behind it. The tank is cracked, and all the bio shit is spilling out and wrapping around it. I'm using the in-game models from Rebirth as a study basis for how to paint all the bio stuff. All the Genova shit. If you've played Remake or Rebirth, you'll know that the Genova fights are spectacles. They put a lot of fucking work into making those as epic as possible. And they did a really cool job reinventing those designs that Nomura did back in '97. Something like this, but modern contemporary. I don't know what that would even be. Bum, 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 bum. All right, let's see. What? Oh, what can I listen to? Yeah, let's do that. Let's skip that. We're gonna listen to some Final Fantasy music. What's gonna be different Final Fantasy music? Need more coffee. I got into a really, really good flow state last night after I got off stream. I don't know why, but it was like midnight. And I was like, fuck, do I go to bed? Or do I do the flow state? And I was like, I'm so behind on work, I'm just going to embrace it. Dude, I got so much work done. I was up till 6 a.m., which is not healthy, but I got so much done. I was like, oh my God. Ultimately, I don't know. Getting into like deep work is so rare for me lately. I haven't found a consistent way to get into it that when it does happen, I just embrace it. And I'm just like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I don't know. It's weird when it hits. I don't know what the fuck I can do to maximize that. But yeah, I was very satisfied when I went to bed. I was like, okay. But yeah, I'm a little dead today as a result. But luckily, I don't need 100% of my brain to render biomatter. You can bullshit a lot of it. I have not seen Annihilation, but I know it's basically about Genova. I know it's essentially the same thing. Do I ever find little bits of food in my beard to snack on? Unfortunately, no. It might not look like it because I haven't shaved since the beginning of this 75-day challenge I was doing with some friends, which today's the last day, so congrats to everybody. I haven't shaved or cut my hair since the start of that. But I condition and I comb my beard every day because I swim in a pool often, and chlorine. I don't know if you're familiar with like what consistent chlorine does to hair. Like if anyone in the chat swims on a regular basis, chlorine turns your hair into fucking gunk, dude. It sucks. So, especially my beard, I have to like, unless I want it to be a solid mass that like crunches and is disgusting and gummy, like I have to clean it constantly. The reason it looks all and my hair's all weird today is because I got out of the pool and I immediately started streaming. I didn't shower first. So I've got that chlorine hair. I desperately need a haircut. I might keep the beard long, but I desperately need a haircut. At this point, I might just shave it. We're close enough to summer, I might just shave it. Alright. I'm gonna give this tentacle some attention to figure out how rendered I want to get on this. Not super, but hey, that's not true. I've seen Asian people with great beards. You gotta go for like the Genghis Khan thing. You gotta go for like the Will this be a print? Maybe. I'm not sure. It's definitely going to be a t-shirt. That's why it's formatted the way it is, with the triangular. Maybe a print, if I can figure out a cool way to colorize it. I also need to make sure it's cool that I sell prints of it. Now that I'm doing work for Square, I don't want to, like, step on any toes or piss anybody off. What's my favorite comic or manga in terms of aesthetic? I mean, right now I'm starting to get into Witch Hat Atelier because the art is so fucking good. The faces are a little too like uwu anime, but fuck, the costumes and the settings, the landscape designs and the way they format the cells is like some of the coolest shit I've seen in a long time. Really, really, really good art. Really good art. Obviously, Berserk's probably my favorite. I know it's not an original answer, but I mean, it's the GOAT for a reason, you know? Berserk is just on another level of, like, vibe. Let's see, anything less known? I love the art in Meta Barons. I'm not super into the story, but the art's really cool. When I was a kid, there was a comic book run in America, a comic book adapting the manga of Record of Lodoss War. It made the eyes a little bit bigger and it made it a little more like over anime than the Madhouse show. But I loved those when I was a kid. Super cool. My favorite comic strip of all time is Little Nemo and Slumberland from the 20s, Winsor McKay. Those were just like the most imaginative, cool. It was the first comic to do a lot of things that became popular later. Just super imaginative, super cool shit. Highly recommend getting the collection. The book is like $40, I think, if it's still in print. Those are amazing. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I could just like, I could turn my computer towards my graphic novel section of the library and just go through everything, but there's a ton of shit over there. There's this awesome artist I follow who is doing a really cool original comic that I hope more people see. His name's Dave Raposa. And boy, really nice to see him finally doing something with his Starvale ideas. Those are the big ones that are coming to mind right now. I found an old treatment for a graphic novel I wanted to do a long time ago, but I still don't think I'm good enough at drawing to pull it off. It might be one of those things where you just have to start it in order to get to a point where you like it. Like when we started Steve, Dave had no idea what he was doing with drawing comics, and that was part of the joke. It was like, we're gonna draw something that looks bad, and it looking bad is gonna be part of the humor. But then over the course of a couple of years of doing it, it started to look like cells from an animated show. Like it got really good. And I was like, damn. Just from deciding to do a comic, even though he had no experience with comics, he got really good at doing it really quick. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll start doing that. I don't know. The problem is, I'm so bad at drawing kids. I don't know if you just lean into the anime aesthetic as like a cheat code to get away with like drawing kids. But like, man, I don't know. Kids are so hard to draw. Yo, always nice to have an off day. I'm drawing this design I'm doing for a Final Fantasy VII t-shirt, which is Genova with the tank behind it cracked with all the bio shit coming out and wrapping around. So I'm using the in-game models to reference all the bio stuff, because it's like, this is like a fun little break from that Elden Ring piece where it's all like very precise, like scales and getting 3D models accurate and making the character, rendering the exact statues that are in the levels and shit. Like, I love doing that stuff, but this is like a fun little vacation where I get to paint some gross, like, jelly, yeah. Yeah. The only thing wrong with the original Final Fantasy VII is the translation. It's a great game, but they translated it so fast that a lot of the stuff is confused. Tim Rogers has a really great series called what is it? Found in Translation? I can't remember what it's called. It's a Final Fantasy VII series where he goes through and compares the original Japanese to what ended up in the English version and the differences and how it impacts how you understand the story. And it's maybe it's called Let's Mosey, a slow translation of Final Fantasy VII. I think that might be what it's called. But that's a really fascinating series. I can only wish my stuff would be seen in Spencer's. That's high praise. Is Spencer still a thing? No, there is a movie called Lost. I mean, there is a movie called Lost in Translation, but there is something else called Found in Translation. And I don't know. I don't think it's Tim's thing, though. I think Tim's thing is called Let's Mosey, a slow translation of Final Fantasy VII. I think. But it's been a while since I watched that one. I watch Tim's videos a lot, just not that one specifically. Shout out to Final Fantasy V, which this song is from. Game does not get enough love for what it did for the series. Yes, I have played Earthbound. Earthbound's great. I don't know why Nintendo is sleeping on that franchise. Like, now is the time, dude. Like, RPGs are fucking popular again. Fucking Undertale crushed it, and Undertale was basically just Earthbound. Yeah, it's great. Some people blame Earthbound's failure on the marketing campaign, which I think is really funny. The marketing campaign had ads in magazines with a scratch and sniff thing that smelled like, I think it's just smelled bad. It smelled like some weird smell. And it said, "This game stinks." And like, some people think that that marketing campaign is what tanked it, which is very funny to consider. I mean, I doubt it, but hey, don't worry about the colonoscopy. I've had two. You might feel a little sore when you wake up, but you're going to be unconscious, and they go by quick. The worst part's honestly the stuff you drink beforehand to clear out your system. It's not painful, though. Good luck though, regardless. Going to the hospital's always a bit weird. If you want to play a really weird game, if anyone's listening who's into that kind of thing, if you liked Earthbound, play Sweet Home if you've never played it. It's a game on the original Nintendo, 8-bit. It's what inspired the Resident Evil series. I believe it's a Capcom game. It's a JRPG that's set in a haunted house. So you fight like monsters and like ghosts and shit. But it all takes place in a haunted house. And it's what inspired them like 10 years later to make the Resident Evil franchise a thing. Which is hilarious. Yeah, it's called Sweet Home. You might need to find I don't know if there's a US version or if you have to get a fan translation. But very cool game. Very weird game. I would have loved to be in that pitch meeting in the 80s when someone's like, it's Dragon Quest in a haunted house. And they're like, oh my god. I'm working on this t-shirt design for Final Fantasy VII, which is Genova coming out of its tank and being a big gross mess. I'm okay with violence, yeah. It's really sad that because of my particular brain issues, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything I've ever seen or played. I can remember every single minute detail, and every single one of these songs triggers that. I'm just like, yes. I love being in Bart's hometown, remembering Dorgan, his father, leaving with the Dawn Warriors to fight Exdeath. Oh no. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, Michaela. Like, I shouldn't remember every single of the 108 characters in Suikoden 2 and all of their stories. I'm like, this is insane. Like, if there's a way to delete some stuff from my brain, make room for new stuff, I feel like that's the stuff that probably needs to go. It's always been that way, though. I can remember, like, literally, like, every detail of everything that's ever happened to me. Everything I've ever seen, everything I've ever played. I don't know what it is. Books. It's very weird. Dave calls it out all the time. Where he's like, how the fuck do you even remember this? And I'm like, how do you not? Like, what do you mean? I mean, if I'm gonna be, I'm not gonna like bullshit. The reason I'm not more well known as an artist is because I basically stopped doing art for a while, or I stopped posting art. I was still working, but I stopped. I stopped really like promoting, and I stopped streaming. If I had kept doing those things, I think I'd be in a better spot. But I just kind of let life get in the way for a while, so I'm trying to get back to where I was. Now that things are a little calmer and I can focus more. Yeah, I see images when I think of images. I can think of a whole composition and then just quickly write it down. Like, I don't have to sketch a composition to think of it. I always have something with me, like, here's a really weird thing. I don't know if anyone in chat's ever experienced this. Recently, in the past few months, I've been taking, working out and health and diet way more seriously. And I swim like 2 to 3 hours a day now, like every day. And I don't know what the fuck. It must just be the oxygen or something. Maybe I'm not getting enough oxygen in my day to day. But when I swim and I'm like breathing heavy, around the 1 hour mark of doing laps in the pool, my brain starts to blast. I start getting like crazy ideas, and I start getting cool ideas for paintings and story ideas for our graphic novels, and like all this, like it's gotten to the point that I have to keep a notebook at the end of the lane of the pool with my water and stuff, because I don't want to forget the things, and I just jot like tons of stuff down every time I think of something. Like, I'll think of like whole dialogue back and forth. So I'll think of ideas for paintings. I'll think of solutions to problems I'm struggling with. Like, all of a sudden, just it's like coming out of a fog. It's like, oh, clarity. Like, there it is. I don't know if I need medication or something. I don't know what it is. I want to feel like that all the time. I don't know what the fuck that is. I feel like that's what your brain should be, like, as a norm. But I have to, like, I don't know. I have to, like, exercise for at least an hour to get into that headspace. And then within 30 minutes of getting out of the pool, it's back to, like, sleep mode. I just feel, like, sluggish and, like, have a hard time focusing again. It's very weird, and I'm kind of alarmed by it. Like, how different my brain functions. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced something like that who's listening, but it's very weird. Like, I know endorphins make you feel good. I'm assuming it's the oxygen. I think maybe my brain's not getting enough oxygen. Could be ADHD, could be my OCD. I have no idea. I was gonna see if I could go on Adderall or Vyvanse or something just as a trial to see. Cause man, if I could feel the way I do, if I could just think the way I feel, have my brain feel like that, the way it feels around the 1 hour mark of swimming, I would. Ugh, God, life would be so much better if I could just feel like that all the time. Maybe the trick is I gotta fill my third floor of my house with a giant pool and put my computer at one end of it and just always be swimming. I think that's the most realistic solution. I'll be the world's first subaquatic painter. Just never get out. Yeah. I was talking to Dave about this a couple weeks ago. It's at the point, in order to get work done, like it's okay with streaming because I'm talking to all of you and I'm listening to music and I'm focusing on a painting and I'm looking at a reference. In my day to day when I'm not streaming, in order to get something done, I have to be listening to music and listening to a podcast or something where people are talking. I have to have like two sources of stimulus, like noise, going on in the background just to be able to start painting. Like, I get like nervous if I don't have a podcast, music, and like something I can reach for, like my drink. Like, I don't know if that's just like addiction to stimulus or if it's ADHD. I have no clue, but I hate it. I can't sleep without a box fan like a foot away from my face going like just white noise directly into my fucking skull. Like yeah, it's bad. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. I'm reading chat, sorry. Yeah, this can be a t-shirt. It's a job, but it's a job that I have, like, creative control on. It's basically gonna be licensed out. They didn't tell me what to make, they were just like, make some stuff. And then, yeah, we'll see how popular it is. I just don't want to do, I don't want to do the same thing you've seen from FF7 a million times. Like, I don't want to do, like, Cloud and Sephiroth on a shirt. I want to take some of the more iconic stuff from the game that doesn't get enough love and play with that stuff. There's so many cool images in that game. And I always go back to this metal doll thing in front of the tank. I always loved that kind of Art Deco, spooky robot face. There's not really a time frame. I'm trying to get this one done pretty quick because FanFest is coming up, and the Square Enix FanFest thing is like, it's like I won't be streaming that week because the deadlines are super NDA and they're super time consuming. So like when that comes up, they're gonna have a list of stuff for me to do. If it's anything like last year, there's gonna be a list of stuff and it's gonna need to be done like within 10 days, and it's gonna be a ton of stuff. And it's gonna be, some of it's gonna be, you know, do original paintings. Some of it's gonna be style match this other person whose stuff got started but wasn't finished. Or it's gonna be, you know, this artist we were working with last year is not here this year, but we want to make it look like they did something. Can you style match it? Like, I did a lot of that last year. It pays really well, and it's really fun to have a really tight deadline. But for this, I'm just trying to get this done before that all starts. Because when that all starts, it's gonna be like, I'm just not going to exist for like 2 weeks. But luckily with FF7, this is going to be heavy on their marketing for the next couple of years. So until the part 3 of the trilogy comes out, it's going to be a relevant IP for them. And then my deadline for the Elden Ring thing, we wanted to get the Rykard done before the DLC came out. I thought the DLC was coming out this month, so I was rushing it. Turns out the DLC's not coming out till June, but I still want to get it done relatively quick. And then my third Elden Ring piece, my third huge one, they just want it by Black Friday. So that's a long one. I'd like to get it done sooner, but the absolute drop date of like, we have to have this is Black Friday. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that I'm working on that doesn't have a deadline yet, but it's in the works. Yeah, there's a couple counterintuitive things that I'm trying to embrace that are tough. Number one is working less and focusing more time on exercise makes you get more done in the time you are working. So you can work less hours and achieve more if you take time off and use that time to exercise and focus on wellness. That's number one, because I used to just work all day and never leave my chair ever. And I was like, no, I must be getting more done because I'm working all day. And it's like, that's not the case. Working and productivity are not the same thing. They can be related, but they're not the same thing. And then the second one is that eating more makes you lose more weight if you're eating the right stuff in the right macros. So I've been on a really, really strict diet for like 5-ish months. I've lost 55 pounds, but I lost all of that weight in the first 3 months. The 2 months since then, I've been on a plateau, and to get past that plateau, I have to eat more calories, but it has to mostly be protein. So it's like, you would think it's calories in, calories out, and that's it. Where it's like, okay, here's this, and you gotta hit 2,000, and then you're at your deficit, and don't go over it. But that works up front, usually, to like kickstart your diet, but then you have to get real creative. You have to go up, you have to make it more of certain kinds of foods and less of other kinds of foods. So the two counterintuitive things I'm dealing with right now are work less, but work on other stuff in your free time and you'll get more done. And then also, I have to eat more food than I was eating, but it has to be the right kinds of stuff. They don't make sense in my head, but they end up working in the long term. Oh my god, they got a real guy singing Oh Maria. Wow. Yeah. That's I really, really recommend that in chat, Chase, to anyone listening. If you're doing weight loss, every time you lose 5 pounds, stick 5 pound weight in a duffel bag by your door, and every time you go outside, lift the duffel bag. Every time. So you always have an appreciation for how much you've achieved. Because if you're a big person, even if you're not, even if you're just, weight can hide in lots of different spots on your body. You might lose weight and not look any different in the mirror. But if you can lift it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I lost a surprising amount of weight. 20 pounds on your body, you could have lost it all from different spots. You might not notice any difference visually, but lifting 20 pounds, you're like, damn, I'm not carrying that around all the time. That's great. I do a lot of reminder stuff like that, even though it makes me probably look like a psychopath to people. Like I have a note in my car on my dash that says, you don't want these foods, with a list of foods, and it says, because they will make you sick, you will throw up and shit. Because I used to do this thing where I'd be like, that sounds good. And then my body would do this cognitive dissonance thing where my brain would make me forget that stuff always makes me sick. Always. But my brain would still want it. It would be like, oh, you want pizza. And I'd be like, damn, I'm on a 3,000 calorie deficit. I guess I could eat some pizza. Nice. And then I'd eat it and I'd throw up and shit and just feel disgusting. Disgusting. Get those pizza sweats where your sweat feels thick and smells like, smells like cheese. Just gross. So I literally put a reminder in my car where it's like, you don't want this. You just don't want it. You don't want Thai food. You don't want to get pad thai. You do not want to get pizza. You will get sick. You will regret it. You 100% of the time regret doing this. Your body's going to tell you it sounds good. And do not do it. Your body's lying to you. I don't know why brains do that. Like, if you know something's gonna make you sick, why does your brain still want it? Is it just like addiction or something? Like lactose intolerant people who are like, yeah, sometimes I eat mac and cheese. It's like, what? What are you doing? Why do bodies do that? My favorite pizza? That's difficult. Probably buffalo chicken with marinara sauce under the cheese and buffalo chicken on top. When it's got the tomato and the spice, I love that. But can't eat it. Can't eat it. I'll die. It's just, yeah, there's just no way to do it. remember when, before Dave met Kim, when Dave was living in Boston, we had a meme between us, like a joke. I could tell how depressed Dave was when I went to visit him by whether or not there was for a buffalo chicken calzone in his apartment. Dave's depression solution was to eat an entire buffalo chicken calzone with blue cheese dressing by himself after a huge deadline, and then just sleep and be disgusting. And I totally understand that. Mine was to order a ton of Chinese food and basically eat till I passed out. That was my horrible binge behavior, which I have not done in probably a year, which is good. Definitely at least 6 months. My diet right now, basically every day, is 2 pounds of ground chicken that's turned into tacos with jalapeno and tomato taco seasoning. So chicken, it's 2 cups of white rice, it's 2 cups of roasted vegetables, and then if I haven't hit my protein goal, it's usually a small steak. And yeah, if I have any calories left over, it's usually apples or like hard cheese, like cheddar. That's basically my whole diet. The only switch is if I don't do chicken tacos, I make a huge thing of beef stew, or yeah. Ribeye was great. Dinner last night was super good. I roasted some baby potatoes and a bunch of shallots, made like some oven home fry kind of things. Super good. Had a ribeye with a tablespoon of butter. It was a little like a 1,200 calorie meal probably. I had to hit 3,500 for the day, so it was like pretty good chunk of it. Yeah, it was good though. It was super good. Very filling. Oh my god, what if that's why I got into flow state last night? What if the trick is to eat a ribeye? That would be what a world that would be if that was the hack. If you just eat a ribeye with roasted potatoes and onions every night, you can achieve your goals. Please, God, let that be the case. I did cast iron it. 3 minutes on one side with a little bit of neutral oil, and then onion powder, garlic powder, a little bit of black pepper, and then flip it. 3 minutes on the other side, butter basting. Take it out, rest it for 10 minutes, cut it against the grain, sprinkle it with big flaky salt. There you go. chopped shallots and baby potatoes, 25 minutes in the oven at 400. A little bit of neutral oil, just so they don't stick to the bottom. Delicious. It was great. Yesterday was weird. I had beef twice yesterday, which I never do. They opened a barbecue space here that had pretty cheap brisket on the menu, and I needed more protein, so I was like, I'll try the brisket. I won't go do the sauces or any of the barbecue bullshit. I'll just try the brisket and some collard greens, and it was great. Super, super good. I am just fighting this tentacle to make it look the way I want it to. The first Steve Lichman book, the Kickstarter award was a cookbook. It did come with one, and it was all D&D themed recipes, which was, we thought about doing a full scale one. We got about 90 recipes on a spreadsheet, but we were like, is this going to sell? I mean, it probably would sell enough to merit the time, but we just had so many other projects going on at the time that it kind of fell by the wayside. The hard part's doing the funny artwork for all of it. Yeah, the first Kickstarter, the top reward was a lunchbox full of surprises. We didn't tell people what the surprises were. The lunchbox was awesome. And then it had like a cookbook. It had little tabletop gaming pawns so you could play Steve characters in D&D or Pathfinder. It had buttons. It had custom bookmarks. It had a Flay wall scroll of him as an old samurai painting. Yeah, it was great. Put a lot of love into that. If you still want the magic cards, there will be some available, I believe, on the next Kickstarter, because I have about 1,000 extra packs. The way you order shit in China, like, the first 1,000 costs a decent amount, and then the second 1,000 costs a little bit less. But then when you get into, like, the 3,000s and 4,000s of an item, the price goes down to nothing. It'll be like, you know, this is an example. These aren't the actual prices. It'll be like, to print 1,000 decks of cards, it's $1,000. To print 2,000 decks of cards, it's $1,100. And it's like, for another $100, I get double? Like, yeah, sure. And that's basically what it does. The more stuff you get, the discount stacks like that. So we get a ton of extra ones. because we figured if we ever do conventions and stuff, they'd be easy to hand out. Those were super fun to make too. Hiring Brad Rigney to do the main characters was really great. We love Brad. Seeing his take on like Dracula especially was very fucking funny. That was great. We didn't give him any, we just gave him complete creative freedom. We were like, do whatever, dude. We love you. And it was so funny. Getting those paintings back fucking killed me. Seeing someone with that much skill render your dumb ideas is just great. We didn't go to China to meet our manufacturers. We hired a guy named Mark Vieira. His company is called On the Mark Printing. He lives in Hawaii, and what he does is he's in Hawaii so he can go both directions. He goes to China to manage the printing, and then he'll come back and he'll go to California to handle the import. So he oversees all the printing in China on site, sends you updates and stuff in person, and then he'll go and make sure that your crate, container, whatever gets through customs, gets on the truck, all that bullshit. So yeah, Mark's great. Mark's got all the connections in China. We were like, hey man, we want to make a fucking. We were like, we know you print books and do paper stuff, but we need somebody to do a lunchbox like made out of tin. And he was like, oh, I can do that. We were like, wow. Did that, came out great. Then we were like, oh, we were thinking of making like fake like trading card things. And he was like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, he's good. Highly recommend if you ever do a project. I can put you in touch with him. I did get investigated by the FBI though, because I was wiring so much money to China and to Mark in Hawaii and to a shipper in France. My bank account got frozen, my business account we used for the Kickstarter. And when I went into the bank to dispute it, there was an agent there. And they were like, why are you sending hundreds of thousands of dollars overseas? And I was like, oh! And they were like, yeah, most often this is associated with people that are like smuggling stuff in. I was like, we're not. We're making a dumb book about skeletons and Draculas, and yeah, they had to go through all my transactions and audit it. It was very funny. I think they thought I was committing some form of like wire. The second one was the first one where they flagged me. I think part of the reason they flagged me was because I didn't realize we were gonna make as much money as we did on the Kickstarter. I thought we were gonna make like 30,000 or something. We ended up making like $500,000 just on Kickstarter without the PayPal, and it was like, fuck. So I believe that first one was my personal account, which I think that's why it got flagged the way it did. Because then suddenly me, Dan the individual, is sending $100,000 to China, $200,000 to this guy. Just like, yeah, whoops. Lessons learned, guys. Lessons learned. Yeah, it's a shame you gotta go through China, but you really do have to. To do our books domestically, I think it costed 3.5 times more at the minimum. It was like, ugh. We were like dead set that we were not going to charge over $50 a unit. We were like, that's cost prohibitive. We're not going to do it. So if we printed in America, we would have had to charge $100 a book. It would have been bad. Are they going to play the whole credit song with like all the characters, like individual themes? For anyone who hasn't played it, the end of Final Fantasy VI, everyone on the development team got to create a playable main character. So there's like 16 playable characters or something. It's like a huge number. And at the end, there's a medley with scenes of what they all end up doing in the end. But they all have theme songs, and they like medley all of them together, and it's like a 25-minute song. I don't know if this orchestration's gonna do that or not. Sounds like maybe not. FF6 has the best ending, and I don't know. Sephiroth's probably a better villain in terms of like how well he's written, but Kefka achieves his goal, I guess. Like Kefka actually like destroys the world, which is great. Yeah, I don't know. 6 is probably my favorite of the whole series. 7's really close behind it, and 9 is right after that. I mean, if I'm being real, Final Fantasy 1's my favorite, because when I was a kid, I was fucking obsessed with that game. But I can understand that story-wise, it doesn't hold up to anything else. Oh, did I miss a question? For book 1, did you guys have a distributor that was Mark sending pallets of books to your house? Book 1, we used Amazon fulfillment because at the time Amazon still had multi-channel fulfillment services. They don't do that anymore. They've blanketed it. They've blanketed everything into selling your book on Amazon. So in order for Amazon to fulfill your shit now, Amazon has to list the book for sale on Amazon, and they take 30% of your profit. So that's like a non-negotiable now. It used to be that they just charged a warehousing fee, which was very low for your pallets while they were there. And then if you sent them a list of all your Kickstarter backers with all their info that you could download in a spreadsheet off Kickstarter, they would just ship everything to them from their warehouse. And it was just a per unit fee, which was like $1.50. And then it was a per weight fee, which was like $3 something. So it ended up being around $5 per unit for Amazon shipping domestically in the US. And then internationally, I believe Amazon International was around like 25. So you could send something to England for like 25 bucks. Now, for reference, I sent a replacement book to someone in London 2 weeks ago, and it was $96. So Amazon was definitely fucking the way to go, for sure. But they don't offer that service anymore. So for book 2, we had to do everything through a company called Quartermaster, who has been very good. We like them. They're based out of Florida. They ship domestic in Canada. International, I don't know what we're gonna do for book 3. International shipping ever since COVID has become a fucking nightmare. I don't know what we're gonna do. We might just not. We're either gonna have to charge $70 per unit for shipping, or we're just not gonna offer international shipping. The only workaround was there's a loophole in France where if you're shipping books, they consider it spreading art and culture, so you get the domestic rate of shipping within France for worldwide as a benefit. So there's a company taking advantage of that in France called Curette. Evan Amundsen uses them. A few other artists use them. They will ship your book. You have to send your pallets to France, which costs a little bit. And then they will take your pallets and send them worldwide. But the problem is, for the domestic rate to apply, it's like $6 a book. It's really cheap. But there's no tracking. So that becomes a problem because when you're sending books to like South Africa, to Slovenia, to Romania, to Russia, to Australia, these are all companies where these are all countries where things just kind of disappear a lot. Books get lost, books get stolen, books get damaged, books get returned. I'd say Russia, Romania were probably the two where the most theft happened. Like people's packages showed up torn open and the stuff had just been taken out. But there's no way to track any of these and there's no insurance. So if you're doing a bulk thing where like, we have so much volume that we can afford to take a hit, Curette's a really good option to save money shipping internationally. But if you've only got a set number of items and you're worried, I think we lost, and again, this isn't Curette's fault. They're just taking advantage of the thing in France. Like, they're doing a great service and the people there are great. But when you're shipping without tracking into some countries in Eastern Europe and, parts of Africa, parts of Australia, I think we lost like 200, 300 units minimum, just gone, just stolen or missing. And, if you're selling stuff for $50 a book, that adds up real fast. You're losing tens of thousands of dollars of stuff. And, we printed a healthy amount of books, but, if you've got 5,000 copies of your book that you printed for your Kickstarter, 6,000, even 10,000, 500 is, a 20th of that. Losing 500 books is nothing to, it's a big deal. So I don't know what we're going to do going forward for international. It really sucks. But yeah, you want to hope that people would understand that you're like, hey, the shipping's $100 because that's just what it costs. We're not making a profit on this. It just costs $100 to send this to England. But people get really mad because they assume you're grifting. They assume you're, The funniest was, if anyone remembers, we posted it online when it happened. A pallet of spare books. We didn't want to pay the warehousing, so we had them sent to Dave. And they ended up at a delivery depot in Colorado. And they just gave us an address, and we went there, and there was no building. It was just a field out near the airport, Denver International. And we were like, where's the warehouse? It wasn't a warehouse. It was a fence outside with a lock. And then inside the field that had been fenced in, there were just pallets with tarps over them. And one of the pallets was just like hundreds of our books just outside in the middle of fucking nowhere in fucking Colorado, out in the prairie. We were like, this is great. This is really, really funny. Well, that's the thing. It's expensive all around if you don't play the game. If you play the game with Amazon or one of these companies and you're like, yeah, I'll give you 30% of my sales, then it's cheap. You know, Amazon will ship the book internationally for you for whatever the fuck, but you got to give them 1/3 of your money up front. Yeah, those books were still usable only because Colorado has no water in its air. Colorado is like one of the driest fucking places I've ever been. Like it's high enough up altitude wise that like there's no water vapor. So the books were like perfectly preserved. Luckily there was no like weather events or anything in the time they'd been sitting there, but like yeah, it's very very dry in Denver. The air is extremely dry. What are we working on now? Right now we're working on our third Steve Lichman book. We're working on some other stuff on the side. Dave's working on a couple of video game projects. I'm working on some video game marketing t-shirt stuff. Um, yeah, that's basically what we're both doing. We spent 5 years doing a TV adaptation of our Steve Lichman books for a major TV network that bought it. But due to the writer's strike, COVID, and a couple other things, it got kicked around between a few studios and never got made. It's not necessarily dead forever, but we're not prioritizing that anymore. We sold it and we made a good amount of money off it and did the Hollywood thing for a while. But now we're back to just writing. Yeah, we're doing our third Steve book. Dave's working on a Starvale thing to put out an indie comic. He's working on a few big video game things. I'm working on some marketing t-shirt shit. And yeah, there you go. Dave has a Patreon now and a weekly stream. Highly recommend both. Yeah, book one was... all our books got sent to the wrong factory. They got sent to a shoe fulfillment factory. There was a lot of shit that went wrong with our first book. At the time, it felt like the end of the world, but I learned a lot. Yeah, fulfilling that Kickstarter was a nightmare. Did a studio approach us directly, or was an agency shopping it around with some kind of pitch deck situation? A studio approached us, and they bought it immediately. They just like bought it and had us do the pilot after the sale. They were like, "We want this." I think I'm allowed to say who it is, but I'm not going to, just to be safe. I gotta check and see what I'm allowed to say. But I can say that we worked with some people that did What We Do in the Shadows, that TV adaptation of the movie What We Do in the Shadows. And yeah, it was going to be an animated show with a lot of the same, creative people that had worked on that. Yeah, and then what happened was we sold it to the company that approached us and wanted it, and then that company, about 6 months after they bought it, they got bought by Disney because Disney wanted to put more stuff on Disney Plus as a streaming service. So they bought this company outright and just to put their catalog up. And then everything that was in development that wasn't already a show got put into what's called turnaround, which is we're going to stick it on a shelf and review it later. And then we sat on a shelf for about 6 months. And then another major company came in, and our agent had shopped it to them. And a subdivision of this company, which had worked on some Oscar-winning movies, recent Oscar-winning movies, decided to purchase it. So we were like, whoa, we got like Oscar talent who wants to make our Steve Lichman show. That's crazy. Then they had us redrafted over the course of like 2 years. And then they attached a major star to it, like a big comedic name. And then we took it out for sale, but unfortunately, we took it out for sale right after the COVID bubble, when animation was in decline and when everybody was firing all their animation studios. And then the writer's strike happened. And yeah, it's basically just a series of really unfortunate shit all the way down. But we did sell a TV show, and it did have Oscar-winning talent, and it did have a major comedian signed on to it. All that stuff is true. So it's still I try to tell myself that it's still a big accomplishment, but it just feels like cope because the show didn't get made. It's like, I don't know. It's the same feeling I get when I'm like, hey, I lost 55 pounds, and people are like, cool, you're still fat. And it's like, I did something though. And they're like, yeah, but I can't see it. I'm like, I did something. I don't know. It's the same feeling. But yeah, that's what we've been up to for the past while. Yeah, I don't know. It was a shitty feeling. And then it didn't end up happening. But yeah. Can you imagine if we got Gilbert Gottfried? Oh my god. Can you imagine? It's a little different than the Last Man Standing thing with Dan Levisi. I think Dan sold an option. It's been a while since I've looked into what Dan did. I think he sold an option. We sold an option too, but then we also sold scripts, and then we also had actors attached to it, and a production studio, and like a network, and it was like literally everything that was supposed to happen happened until the writer's strike and the COVID stuff. Like, it would have gotten made. Everything was in line for it to get made. There was no more like ifs. They just couldn't find somebody to buy it because animation is super taboo right now. But yeah, that was rough. I'll put it that way. That was that was what you call a bad time. Do we stream much anymore? We do. Dave's been particularly busy lately. Like, Dave's always busy, but lately he's been real busy. I'm sure people have seen he's doing work for Diablo 4, which is awesome. It's like a big childhood dream of his that he achieved. It's really cool. But doing that on top of the other stuff he was already doing, he's like real under the gun. So usually when he streams, it's just him alone, knocking out some streams because it's part of his Patreon. or he'll just bring Kim on to read chat. But yeah, we still stream together. It's just not as frequent because he's like crazy busy right now. If you were starting now, unknown, what would you do to promote your comic? Kickstarter, send it to agencies, Patreon? I would just post it everywhere. I'd probably get like, I'd probably market on Amazon. Sorry, not Amazon. I'd probably market on TikTok and Instagram. I'd probably do like little animations of the panels and turn them into things and see if I could get them trending. Maybe do some voice acting, light animation, stuff like that. I'd post on Reddit constantly. I'd post on, every sharing site possible. I would print small, indie runs of them, and I would send them to comics podcasts and other creators who I respect that, have shows and things, to see if they would review it or at least talk about it, or even if they don't, give you feedback on it. I would reach out to other comic creators and either ask for advice, ask if they have streams so you can become part of their community and meet other people that will help you promote your stuff, or see if they want to collab on something. Just do everything. Do all of that. Try to get it seen in as many places as possible. Try to talk to as many other people doing what you're trying to do, so you have a network and you have a base of people that will, help promote and answer questions and things. Send it out to people that are not mega conglomerate companies. Send it out to other creators that are individuals who will respect you as an individual. Do all that. I will say that one of the industry people who was working on our show with us, been in the field for a long time, super experienced, super knowledgeable guy. He called us after we signed the major comedian, and he was like, "This is basically a sure thing now. Like, it's gonna happen. You guys should go celebrate." And when it didn't happen, we had a call with him, and he was like, his brain was like broken. He was like, "I've never seen this happen before." He was like, "You have Oscar-winning talent. You have a famous comedian signed to it. You have 2 best-selling Kickstarter books. You have a 3rd book on the way." He was like, this... Basically, he was just like, this is the worst market possible for something like this to happen. So, yeah, I don't know. On paper, it seemed like it should have worked, but... No, we did want him for the Devil, but we never got far enough to pitch it. Me and Dave both wanted John Mulaney to be the Devil, but the show never got picked up, so we couldn't pitch that. In our book, the Devil is like a 1930s, 1940s old-fashioned version of the Devil who's like, meh. What are you doing? Working on Sunday? Like, he's very old school evil. And we were like, we want John Mulaney to be that. That's like perfect. Yeah, beat it, Tits. I think he actually says scram. He says, scram, why don't you, in our book. Yeah. Yeah, we would have wanted John Mulaney to be the Devil. We would have wanted Stavros to be Ben, the Beholder. We had a whole lineup. We wanted Theo Vaughn to be Dale, our southern redneck mysticism guy. Yeah, I don't know. High hopes. Yeah, that would have been good, but hey. We wanted, oh, fuck. I can't remember his name. Doesn't matter. It's not happening. Doesn't matter. The rights were in limbo until January, and then they reverted to me and Dave. So now me and Dave have them back. Luckily, the lawyer who drafted our agreement with all these studios was the same lawyer that drafted the agreement for the Walking Dead TV show adaptation from the graphic novels. Very, very good entertainment lawyer. And he basically put it in our contract that if the studios didn't pay every 6 months to sit on the rights, we would get them back. So for almost 6 years, every 6 months, we got a big check for people to maintain the rights. And then once the market crashed after the COVID bubble thing, you know, they gave it a year and then they didn't want to re-up. So we got the rights right back. No fuss. The rights being in limbo is when a contract isn't clear or doesn't stipulate who gets what in the event of a failure. So let's say you sign a contract with me for me to get the rights to a book you wrote, and I get to make a show out of it per the contract. If I then choose to not make a show out of it, well, you don't get the rights back because you didn't stipulate in the contract that, you know, the rights aren't held by me in perpetuity. So then you get to say, well, he's not making a show, therefore I should get the rights back. And I say, well, no, I have the rights to make a show. I'm just choosing not to make the show. But the rights to make, some companies do, Disney does this a lot. If there's a show that is competition for something they want to do, they'll buy the rights to it and then they'll just sit on it. And if the contract doesn't stipulate that they have to do X, Y, or Z with those rights, they can just shelve it and just go, no, we own the rights to that. And it's never going to get made because we don't want it to compete with this other thing we already have in production. So there can be a malicious practice where people buy the rights to make your thing and then they intentionally do nothing with it because it competes with something else they have in development. So you want a good lawyer who's going to write the contract in such a way that they can't do that stuff as much as possible. Or they say, okay, if in good faith you're going to make a show, then a show takes about 2 years to make. So we're going to put it in this contract that if for whatever reason you haven't made the show in 2 years, you can pay us another sum of money, and then if you really want to make the show, we'll give you another 2 years to do it. But if you're just going to buy this and sit on it, that means that the cost of you sitting on it is going to be that you have to pay the option price every 2 years until you make the show. So it's a way to force them to, if they're going to either delay you or make you wait, or the worst case scenario, just screw you over by not making it at all and lying to you, they have to pay a fee in order to do that. If you're not going to make my show, then you have to give me the option fee every year that you don't make it. And option fees can be anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000. So depending how much they paid, if they have to pay that shit annually, it adds up really fast. It's basically just a contractual way to hold people accountable and make sure that they're doing what they agreed to do in good faith, and not just buy the rights to your thing and screw you over. Hello, what's going on? Yeah, you'll probably never get Kimba the White Lion. Probably not. I wanted the guy who played Astarion in Baldur's Gate to be Dracula. Originally, we wanted James from Pokemon, but I think that actor has decided he's never doing that voice again. We wanted that very like, oh, Jesse, like, that is the Dracula voice. Like, it's always been that. We've made fun of that voice with that character in mind forever. But then Baldur's Gate came out, and the guy who played Astarion basically was doing James from Pokemon, and we were like, this is great. This is the perfect amount of flamboyant with, like, sassy, like, but yeah. Either one of those would have been perfect. Flay was going to be one of the comedians who helped us write the show, who was involved with What We Do in the Shadows. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he wants to be publicly attached. We're still on good terms, but like, some people don't want to like throw out there, hey, I was attached to a thing that got canceled, because it's like, it doesn't look great. But yeah, he's a big podcaster who's a really good comedian. He was going to be Flay. Which would have been great because he's been in the industry for a while and he's kind of seen everything, and he has that kind of like, I'm over it affect that Flay has as a character, where it's like, you can't blow my mind, like I've seen it all. Would have been a very good fit. But yeah. I'm going to explode if I don't pee, so I'll be right back. Literally gonna die if I don't pee right now. back. Oh man, that chlorine really did a number on my hair. Damn. It's so fucking dry when you get out of the pool. Yeah, I beat Rebirth last couple days ago. It was great. The ending sucks. 95% of the game, fantastic. The ending was oof. It was a lot. But man, great game. Combat, characters, world design, all that shit, amazing. And again, if you're listening to this and you're like, I really liked that ending, that's okay. That kind of thing isn't my, it's not what I'm into. That type of storytelling. The very Kingdom Heartsy stuff is like, there's a time and a place for that. For me personally, FF7 isn't the place for that, personally. But hey, listen, it's a big world. It's a lot of people. People are allowed to like what they like. Not everything has to be for me. I'm not a greedy, sensitive little guy. It's all good. I enjoyed 95% of that game so much that I don't even care. Genuinely shocked at the quality of some of it. The voice actor who plays Barrett should get some kind of award. Barrett's whole quest in Corel is like, that guy can act. It's weird because he's a perfect voice for Barrett, but they kind of, in part one, they kind of couched him behind like a Mr. T impression. And it's like, yeah, this works. And like, it sounds like the character and this is good. And like, he had some really good moments with like Marlene and stuff. But in part two, he's really allowed to like act. He's not like hiding behind that like caricature as much in the script. And boy, he's a really good voice actor. The only main game thing in FF7 Rebirth I did not like is they added another Chadley, and this time it's a female called Mai. It's like a AI, and they make her speak out of your controller. So when you're doing like certain fights that are like collecting data for Chadley, your controller will vibrate, and she'll be like, "Oh no, you're in danger. I knew you could do it. I never had a doubt." And it's like, you're embarrassing me. Like, I'm embarrassed. I'm alone in my house, and I'm still embarrassed that I'm playing this right now. Like, I don't... Somebody, anybody, help us! It's like, I have to, like, look around and... Like, I live in the woods. I live alone in a house in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And I still had to get up off the couch and look out my windows and make sure nobody was in the area that could hear me playing this because I was so embarrassed. I was like, can we not do the fucking anime cringe stuff speaking out of my controller? Especially because, like, when you turn down your TV, your controller doesn't get turned down with it, so suddenly she'll just like scream like, "Cloud, look out! Dangerous behemoth variant detected. I'm sure you can handle it." I'm like, ugh. Ugh. But yeah, I don't know. It is funny though, like thinking back to 1996, and it's like people were complaining in Ocarina of Time that Navi was annoying. Just, hey, listen. Hey, listen. It's like, that's nothing compared to, wow, you're so strong. I just can't believe it. But I guess I shouldn't have thought otherwise. Haha. And it's, ugh. Ugh. Anyway, 95% of the game was amazing. I love 95% of it, okay? Hey, Tadas. What's up? Queen's Blood was very good. Queen's Blood was great. I don't know when it clicked for me. For the first like hour of trying Queen's Blood, I was like, what are we doing? And then it clicked, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Do I enjoy... You said I don't enjoy antiques. Do I enjoy physical media, home theater, DVD cases and stuff? It depends. I don't like record... Like, I don't like records. Like, I don't have, like, a record player, but I love LPs because of the art. I have some LPs, just to have them for the artwork. There's a few up here, actually. What other physical media? I mean, obviously, I collect books. I love books the most. I have a bunch of DVDs. The only DVDs that I would hold on to are stuff that isn't going to be re-released. Like, some movies are lost to time. But I don't have, like, a shelf of DVDs or anything. But, yeah. The only physical media that I really hold on to is antique video games. Antique video games, if that's even a term. Old PS1 stuff or Super Nintendo games, shit like that. Like, a lot of those that I held on to are worth like a ton of money, so I'm just like sitting on them even longer. Like, I remember buying Suikoden 2 with allowance money for 30 bucks, and now it's worth like 300. It's like, okay, I'll hold on to that. I don't have a CRTV, no. If I'm gonna play a game, I typically emulate them if I own it. But I don't have space for a CRTV dedicated in my house. Yeah, moving my library here was difficult. I've got hundreds of books. But I did build this house and I designed this house from the ground up to have a library up here. So this is their final destination. Even if I move and I rent this place out, I'm probably going to leave the library here. So... I wish books weren't heavy too. Then I could ship the books I sell around the world for less than $100. Be awesome. Let's see. I have not read those books, Mr. Plutons. Any favorite art books, art instruction books? There's so many. There's so many. My favorite's always going to be the Final Fantasy IX art book. That's the book that got me into even the idea of concept art. I love that book. That's a treasure of a book. Yeah. In terms of instruction, I mean, oh man. The Loomis books are great. The James Gurney books are great. The Prima, whatever, Alla Prima's great. Art books, though, God, there's so many. All the Studio Ghibli stuff, all of the Final Fantasy game art books. The From Software DesignWorks books are fucking incredible. Oh, man. They put out a couple of years ago a big collection of all the art of Dungeons and Dragons over the years. That one was really good. I unironically love the original monster manuals from like the 70s, 80s. The artwork in them is like so from the heart. It's not the most like technically great art, but that's not the point. It's just like, it's such a cool thing that they did. And it's like, I don't know, something about that is so inspiring still to me. Like, I remember looking at those when I was a kid and being like in wonder. I still look at those regularly. You can find PDFs of the FF9 art book online. I don't know if it's still for sale or in circulation. For a brief period in time, it was like $400 because everybody wanted it and there was no reprint. I think they reprinted it at one point, but when I was a kid, it was in like the video game store for some reason. Like with the strategy guides, they just had the FF9 art book, and it was like, this is a thing? Like, I can get an art book of a video game? And it was just, yeah, it just blew my mind. Me and Dave looked at that thing for hours. Hours and hours and hours. The most expensive books I own are in a vault at a bank in a safety deposit box. But I do have some here that are worth a lot. I'll go grab one. I'll be right back. Hey chat. The most expensive book I have in my home collection that isn't in a, this is going to be reflective when I hold it up. It's a original Will Pogany Rime of the Ancient Mariner with the gold embossing. Sorry. Yeah, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, yeah. This is probably worth about 2,000. It's in a protective case, but if you don't know Will Pogany's art, it's one of my all-time favorites. Let me see if I can find a good page to show you. Has a lot of really stunning gilded lettering and gold foil framing and margin. His books are like whole works of art. Like every page, every part of the process is like a work of art. It's really, it's quite stunning. But I found this at the New York Antiquarian Book Festival. I'd never seen a first edition of it in my life. And that was my gift to myself that year. But yeah. Oh, I turned off my screen. Whoops. Thank you. Yeah, I designed this whole room very intentionally. Let me see if I can tilt here. It's going to be hard for me to show you everything. But I'll give you some kind of idea. And then, I don't know if you can see this or not. Oh, probably not. Big vaulted ceilings up here. It's all post and beam. There's another stained glass window on the other side of the room, but you can't see it. It's the same as this one, except it's red with different characters on it. Walkthrough video? Yeah, maybe someday. It's weird to take pride in something you designed, but not want to feel like you're like flexing. It's hard to be like, this is something I genuinely enjoyed making. This is the home I designed, like, without it seeming like a brag. Like, I don't know, like the Massachusetts in me makes me not want to do stuff like video walkthroughs because it feels like I'm asking to get beat up. It's just like a bro, you think you're better than me? Like, it's just that reaction. These windows. Oh, were pulled out of an old church that got torn down a few towns over from here. They were made at the Tiffany workshop, like 100 and, well, the dates are on the bottom actually, 1847. So like 100 and what, 80 years ago, 160 years ago. But yeah, they were made at the Tiffany workshop, not by Tiffany, but by an apprentice, and they were installed here at a cathedral church school thing called St. Mary's that got torn down. They ended up in a salvage yard, and I picked them up and had them restored and installed in the house. I put lights behind them so I can turn them on at night, but I don't know. It had always been a dream of mine since I was a kid to put stained glass in a studio room with like a library, and you don't see those often. You never see like full 12-foot stained glass windows for sale. That just doesn't usually happen because it's not a common thing. But it's yeah, I had to get them when I saw them. I was like, I'm never gonna see something like this again, so I just got them immediately. This is only one level of the house. There's so many other crazy, stupid antiques I've collected over the years hanging around here. How did I find out about them? If you're ever in Rhode Island, there's an antique shop in Newport called Aardvark Antiques. And what makes them different from other antique shops is that they are salvagers. People don't bring them stuff. They go and they do demolitions and they do restorations of the old mansions in the Newport area and other old houses around the New England area. And what they do is, if something's getting torn down or renovated, they buy everything as like a lot, and then they bring it to their place and they restore it and they flip it and sell it. So anytime there's some really cool old house or estate sale or place getting torn down, they end up with a whole new yard of stuff. They have a statue yard in the back that's all like old gas lamps and like huge statues of like knights and lions and like crazy things you'd see at like old, old mansions. Big wrought iron gates, water fountains, massive like brass and iron doors, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of statues and water fountains. And then inside they have a room for antique windows. And anytime they pull an old original window out that isn't like a prefab thing that was like custom built, it ends up in the window room. And I go in there about once a month just to see what they have, because they're constantly, getting new stuff. I take like one Sunday and I'll go down to Rhode Island and do a few things, and they're always one of my stops. They had them, and I was like, these look familiar, where did they come from? And they told me the story, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm buying these right now. And yeah, they ended up being worth more than I paid, thank God. But at the time it was more just like, you'll see little stained glass windows for sale, or like little Tiffany style ones that aren't like illustrations, like panel ones. And I didn't want that. I wanted like real church like windows, and you just never see those for sale. So the only other person I know that has those for sale regularly is a place called Beatty American Antiques in Philadelphia, who I bought some other stuff in the house from. But yeah, very hard to find. Ugh. I don't want to listen to this lady sing. I'm here for music, not for fucking cringe. Cringe. Alright, cool. guess I'll work on this weird wing thing. Been putting it off. This thing is so bizarre. There's no, like, logic to this one. It's just kind of a thing. Later. Super Mario Brothers 3. Hold down on the white blocks. Come on, everybody knows that. What is this critter? This is Genova from Final Fantasy VII. I'm planning to do the streams regularly with an asterisk. There's not a set time because I'm swimming a lot as part of a fitness thing I'm doing, and the times the pool is open changes every day, so I'm kind of rolling with that. When I'm able to go to the pool changes every day, so my stream time is going to change every day. Let's think. I'm definitely going to need to not be online for part of April because of Square Enix's FanFest, because I'm going to be doing some tight deadline work with a couple people there. So yeah, with a couple caveats, I'll be doing the streams regularly. If not daily, then almost daily. And then, of course, if I get some NDA stuff that they don't want me to show, I'll probably switch to doing studies or something. But, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to. It's just, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I keep getting results. Lost a bunch of weight up front and then it all stopped, so we'll see what happens. What's up, Bradley Clan? Good to see ya. Wow. Nobuo Uematsu. You genius. can feel Freya's pain. At the loss of Sir Fratley in Burmecia. Wow. It's as if I was there in Clara when the tree fell. Goodness. Wow. Love Mitsuda. Mitsuda is incredible. Yeah, I think it's pretty widely accepted that Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger have some of the greatest music ever made. Didn't they do a piece for Sea of Stars as like a guest composer? That's cool. Yeah. The Chrono Trigger soundtrack is just some next level stuff. Everything about that game is just fucking incredible. Yay. What a kind thing to say. What a kind thing to say. Thank you. Why is biomatter fucking weird tumorous growths and shit so much more fun to paint than like scales? I mean, I think I know why. I think it's because scales are the same thing over and over and over again. Whereas this is like weird amorphous jelly you can kind of fudge around and have fun with. There you go. I answered my question. Question answered. I need the Dark Souls font for You Died. Question answered. Throw it up every time. Critique received. Lesson learned. Isn't one of them, fuck, what am I thinking of? It's not Bloodborne. Is it Elden Ring? Where it says duty fulfilled? That's a good one. Yo, Artiga. What's happening? It's crazy to think how much better a game Final Fantasy X would have been if there was no voice acting. Or if they just cast somebody else to be Tidus. I think all the other voice actors are pretty good. Yo, good to see you. The stream will be up when I'm done. We didn't cover... It's been a pretty chill stream. We didn't have any huge discussions. You didn't miss a ton. Put me in, Nobuo. I can do it. Final Fantasy is so much fun. The problem is you're like having a good time playing that game. All the voices work. All the characters are cool. And then either Tidus or Seymour shows up. They're having a good time. And then Tidus is like, that's when I knew that the evil I'd been chasing all along, it was my dad. I always wondered why my old man didn't like me. Now I realized it's because I didn't like myself. Like, oh, God. And then Seymour shows up. You're like, ooh, this looks evil. What's going on? He goes, Lady Yuna. Well, if it isn't Lady Yuna, I bet you're wondering how I'm still here, Lady Yuna. The Maesters of Pavel wondered how I'm... I don't know. Come on, guys. Don't cry, crybaby. He's a crybaby. My son, the crybaby. You gonna cry again, crybaby? All you do is cry, baby. Like, I don't know. I don't know Final Fantasy X. I love you, but I don't know. Someday, I'm gonna fight my dad. My dad. Huh, you gonna cry again, crybaby? Just fucking kill me, son. Fucking kill me and kill Sin. And save the world. I'll never say I love you, but I am proud of you, crybaby. I don't know. Fortin with Will, yeah. Oh, if you're wondering how I'm alive, Lady Yuna, it's a... You ever seen the English version of Eventual? There's a point where Tifa says, yeah. Dilly-dally, shilly-shally. Dilly-dally, shilly-shally. Dilly-dally, shilly-shally. Then they do like the Zack in the Afterlife thing where he's like, what are you doing here? Don't you know that you shouldn't be here because it's not your time yet? Like the timing? What is with the timing and the cadence on those lines? There's like huge pauses. It's very weird. Never thought I'd see you here because whoosh, it's not your time yet. Maybe you should go back because you don't belong here. I don't know. Come on, I don't want to hear voices. Cringe. Cringing. Cringing. And then Orin shows up and he goes,
your father, he knew that deep down, being a crybaby was... being a crybaby was what the world needed. So he sent me here to make sure that you cry, baby. Perhaps tears are no different than the oceans of spirit. The salt water that comes from a crybaby is no different than the oceans of our worlds.
I can't do it. I've had too much coffee. Oh. All I remember, well, that's not true. Obviously, I remember a lot from FF10. Do you remember the two, like, Chad Ronso guys that show up just to make fun of Kamari everywhere, where they go,
Ha ha! No horn. Hey, look. It's no horn. No horn.
what was that? What an amazing plot point. I guess I knew, all along, that I was just a ghost that loves to play soccer. Ha 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 ha! Try it, Yuna. What a cool world, though. They didn't land the voice acting, but what a cool world. So much cool design in that game. It was very, I don't know, what would we call it? After the Star Wars prequels came out, like after episode 1, there was this trend of like, what would we call it? Like, I guess maximalism or something? Fantasy maximalism? Everything was like intentionally over-designed. FF10 was my favorite version of that though, because they combined it with like island culture artwork and stuff. It's the most colorful game I'd ever seen, for sure, at the time. Probably still is. They were like, we're gonna use every fucking color in the world. I'm gonna call it fantasy maximalism. Like everything did it after the Star Wars prequels came out. Where it's just like there's gonna be stuff everywhere, and it's all gonna be like super complicated and cool, and we're gonna world build the shit out of everything. Like, yeah. Chrono Cross has that island vibe too. You can tell around that time they were on a kick. They were on a kick with that because those two games were in development around the same time. There you go, do it. Yeah, I miss painted backgrounds a lot. We lost something when the industry went away from pre-rendered painted backgrounds. Be cool if they go back to it someday. They probably won't though. Well, you never know. Now that indie games are a thing, someone will want that niche bad enough to do it themselves. Man, I really want to play. Is there an Xbox 360 emulator that's any good? Does anyone know? I want to play Lost Odyssey so bad. It's like the Final Fantasy game we never got. It's the one he wanted to make that they wouldn't let him make, and then they ran him out of the company after Spirits Within bombed. I want to play it so bad. The concept of the game and the soundtrack and everything are so good. What are some well-known games with 2D backgrounds? I've never considered that. Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 all have pre-rendered 2D backgrounds with 3D models on top. The thing that FF7, 8, and 9 pioneered was rendering the environment in 3D and then taking a screenshot of it so that you could transition from the screenshot back into the 3D model to warp the level you were walking around in into a real-time cinematic you could control the character in. That was super cool. Jade Cocoon, I think, had some. Legend of the Dragoon had some. Final Fantasy X, obviously, had some painted backgrounds. Yeah, it was pretty widespread for any RPG. Any RPG released between the beginning of PlayStation 1 and the midlife of PlayStation 2. Lyrics. Cringe. Chrono Cross, obviously. Oh, the Mana games. Legend of Mana. Those games had amazing painted backgrounds. Those were like cartoon styled though. The soundtrack we're listening to right now, Final Fantasy XII, is actually the game where Square said we're not doing that anymore and switched completely to 3D. Where they were like, nope, we're going to make a real world out of 100% polygons. 12 did a really cool thing, though, where they figured out how to map high-resolution JPEGs onto their models. So everything looks super art-directed and super detailed and cool. Because they were able to wrap, like, really impressive textures around very basic models to make them look super good. That's probably my favorite. Is it? I think so. That's probably my favorite Square style, is the super nice JPEGs wrapped around basic models. They did it in FF9, but the resolution of the PlayStation couldn't handle it. And then they really did it in 12. Yeah, 12 is a beautiful game. Everything in the Ivalice world is, like, stunning. Whether it's Final Fantasy Tactics, whether it's 12, whether it's, Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story is probably my favorite art-directed game Square ever made. Really difficult game to play, but good lord, the visuals. Vagrant Story was kind of the precursor to FF12 in terms of visual style. So the PS1, if anyone looks up Vagrant Story, the PlayStation 1 wasn't powerful enough to handle a lighting engine, so you had to, like, just make lighter colored blocks and place them in the right spots to look like stuff was lit up. So that whole game is, there's no, like, you can't place a light and have it shade the objects. They had to actually hand paint all the lighting into it. That also goes for the character models. So if you see scenes of them in silhouette and it's just like a rim light of their face from the side, they had to make a new model of the character that was black and actually paint a texture of the side of their face and turn the model and lock the camera to make it look like a silhouette. Like, crazy dedication. Crazy dedication in that game to nailing an aesthetic. Yeah, everything about 12 is great except the main characters. Vaughn and Pinello suck. Everything else in that game is great. And it's because they added them at the tail end of development, because the company told them they needed more relatable characters who looked like, you know, asexual kids. But everything else in that game is great. The gameplay is difficult. If you're going to play Vagrant Story, I would look up a guide or a tutorial. It's really fun once you get the hang of it, but it's basically subsystems on top of subsystems on top of subsystems. It's like what weapon type you have, what elements you put into it, affect like what can hurt what enemy. Everything's customizable and grows. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's a great game. It's just very difficult to play. It's very rule heavy. The goal when they set out to make it was to make, like, I think they actually said it was to make something that was like a rules heavy hardcore version of an RPG where like you have to pay attention to everything for it to work. It's borderline like survival. Which is probably why it bombed, because they marketed it like a Final Fantasy game. but the story is so good. The story, the art, the music, 10 out of 10 all across the board. It did, unfortunately, well, I guess Final Fantasy VIII started the trend of RPG characters wearing baggy shorts, but it definitely stood out more seeing a character in a fantasy world wear shorts. But, yeah. One of my favorite character designs of all time is in that game for the villain. He's got no shirt with a tattoo on his chest with two metal gauntlet arms and like a long like cloak that's tied around his waist. Super cool design. This character called Sydney. Honestly, the music and the sound effects are so atmospheric and iconic. If you don't want to play it, if you leave on a long play, something without commentary, it's a really cozy game to leave on like a second monitor while you work. Because all of the sound effects are very PlayStation 1 Squaresoft. They feel very familiar and they have an ambience to them. Sydney's a great character design. One of the best character designs ever from Square, for sure. The story's really cool. It takes place in this city that's like basically a fantasy version of Chernobyl, where like they were doing an experiment with magic that went wrong and it fucked everything up and like made the world like poison and like people can't be there or they die. There's all this weird like magic contamination and weird shit coming out of the ground and stuff, and like so they quarantine it. Already a cool idea. Like a place with a medieval college that's studying stuff they shouldn't and it goes wrong and you have the equivalent of like a nuclear meltdown. And then you have this cult that goes there and you're working for the government, tracking down this cult and trying to figure out why they're there and what they're doing, and like it's very Da Vinci Code mixed with, I don't even know. It's just very good. It's very, very good. All the Ivalice games are really, really good. Yeah, it's really good. Does the story get super convoluted? No, it's very straightforward. The story is very straightforward. It's there's some twists and turns and stuff, but there's no like unreliable narrator craziness. There's no like, you know, multiple timelines or anything like that. It's like there's some twists and there's some betrayals and there's some interesting revelations, but it's nowhere near as convoluted as like Final Fantasy VII or Xenogears. It's also got probably the best translation of any Squaresoft game from that era. They hired somebody to go in and translate it into like Old English. So like everybody speaks with a cool accent and all the words are like very particularly, it's very Shakespearean. Everyone speaks in like an elevated language. It's very cool. Any plans for making a video game? No, not me personally. There's a million ideas of something I could make or I'd like to make if I had the ability or the connections, but I do not. No shortage of ideas for games, but no plans to make one. I feel like I'm underselling my services. Any idea what would help? I want to say I'm a 2D worlder, so I might be easier to be financially pleased, and I do enjoy drawing. Could you explain more what you're asking, just so I understand completely? So I'm a 2D worlder. You feel like you charge less than others or in general? Well, I guess the question is, do you need to charge less to compete, or are you charging less because you're undervaluing yourself for unfounded reasons? The easiest thing to do would be to charge a little bit more and see if you can get away with it, then charge a little bit more. Or do the Hail Mary, charge way more, let people say no, and then adjust accordingly. But yeah, either go all in or go incremental, but you can definitely raise your rates and see how people respond. There's no shame in that. Oh. Okay, second worlder. I understand. Okay. My brain was still stuck on 2D design versus 3D design from the conversation earlier. Second worlder. Okay. That's why a lot of comic artists are hired from South America now, but much lower cost of living, lower. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Second worlder. Got it. I understand. Okay. Charge a bit more. Worst that can happen is people say we can't do that, and then you go back to what you're doing and try something else. But yeah, charge more. There's no shame in that. I saw a 2D worlder, and I was like, 2D world designer? Are you saying you like do environmental art, but you don't use 3D software? Like my brain was busted there for a minute. I didn't realize it was second. Still thinking about Final Fantasy too much. My mistake. That would be a term we should adopt, though. Me? I'm a 2D worlder. Me and my pencil, I create universes. That's Scott. He's a 3D worlder. It's a whole different ballpark. You can move the camera around in his worlds. Times are tough for us 2D worlders. Exactly. I'm from the 2D world. I only play Super Nintendo RPGs. I don't want to hear any singing. Come on. Is it so much to ask? Alright, let me go back here. Find something else to listen to. There it is. There it is. Actually, no. No, 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 no. No, no, no. No, no, no. There it is. Mitsuda! I will be bringing on a friend of mine who makes video games to talk next week on stream. Adrian Bauer from D-Pad Studio, who made Owlboy. He's a game designer. So if you guys have questions or things you'd like to ask a game designer, he would be happy to answer them. This is actually coming together quicker than I thought it would. Yeah, the metal face, definitely. King Baldwin, what a great design. I know he was a historical figure that did wear that mask, but that movie has such an iconic look. I won my first battle at the age of 16. I thought then that I would live forever. He's got such a cool voice. I thought then I would live forever. I totally stole that Baldwin design for a character design I did. Where would it be? Where could I find it? Yeah, there we go. I found it. I have to send a really low resolution picture to myself though, because I'm locked out of my goddamn Twitter and I'm on a new computer, which sucks. Here you go. This is really shit resolution. Holy crap. A few years ago, as a fun thing, a few friends decided to make up what they thought a planeswalker should be if they got control of making a new Magic the Gathering character. I wanted to do like kind of a Middle Eastern themed sorcerer who would burn ashes of monsters they've killed in a censer, and it would release a smoke version of the monster. which is super fucking funny because Dragon's Dogma. I did this piece 4 years ago, and Dragon's Dogma 2 released a trailer 6 months ago, and they included a class of a sorcerer that wields a censer that makes smoke monsters come out of the censer. And I was like, how the fuck? Like, is this something that I saw through osmosis? Did something else do this? And I accidentally stole it? Or did we both have that idea? Because when I saw that in the Dragon's Dogma trailer, I was like, I painted that 4 years ago. What the fuck? Like, that's such a specific idea. That's so cool that I get to play that character. Did I like absorb this idea from something and I'm just forgetting it? Like, did they see the same thing too? Man. It's called parallel thinking. If you're thinking of the same thing I am, but 9 times out of 10, when parallel thinking happens, it's because something's happening in the genre or in the culture around a thing that makes you think of it. So, like, 2 people will see the same thing and it gives them the same idea, but I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything that came out that has that idea. Either way, very excited to play that class in Dragon's Dogma 2. I wanted to make a, if I could make a game like we were talking about earlier, I wanted to make a game like a Metroidvania set in, so there's this old story in the Middle East where, what is it, Lot or Sodom and Gomorrah? I can't remember. The city that they flip over upside down into the Dead Sea to kill everybody because it was so sinful. I wanted to tie that in with like the Solomon legends with all the demons and stuff and like using like magic to make demons do your bidding. I wanted to have a big dead upside down city. And I wanted you to go through it as a character with a censer. And as you kill monsters, you get like the resin from their ashes, and you can burn them and summon spirit versions of them and stuff. And like, I thought it would be super cool, but I'm not a video game programmer. That character I just showed you in the red was going to be the villain for that. He wasn't going to have a corporeal form. He was just going to be a mask that was haunted. And when his sensor got lit, the smoke would billow into the clothing and inflate him, basically. And like when you kill him, the smoke would all evaporate and escape like a spirit, like a mist. You have to track it down and stuff. But yeah, I can't make games. Speaking of which, when the hell is Silk Song coming out? Is Silk Song ever coming out? I'm doing that thing I do again where I work too much and I forget to eat. I've only had 600 calories today. So I probably have to get off here and go eat something in a minute, but I'll be back. Oh, they actually released a statement. It said late 2024? At the earliest? Okay. I didn't know they released a statement. That's good at least. Has it been 10 years since Hollow Knight? What was Hollow Knight, 2016? 2018? I'd like to get this wing done tonight. So I think that's my goal. I'm gonna get off of here in a minute and go eat. I'll be back in an hour, and then we'll just keep going until this wing is done. So if you're listening, if you haven't stood up in a while, go take a break, walk around, stretch, drink some water, eat something, recharge. I'll be back in like an hour ish, and we will continue this. I will see you all soon. whatever you're avoiding doing that's healthy, go do it. All right? For me, it's a meal and a quick walk. Take a look at this real quick. Ooh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. All right. This is what I got done today. So far. So we'll come back. We'll maybe finish this tentacle and this wing. And yeah. Alright guys, I'll see you.